Marketed as the first instalment of a series of X-Men spin-offs, the failure of X-Men Origins Wolverine led to the entire project being cancelled. Today, we will be looking exactly why this film failed. I'm Tommy Bowyer from Movie Rewind, and without further ado, let's get into it. So, X-Men Origins Wolverine was released in 2009, it was directed by Gavin Hood, and it stars Hugh Jackman in the role of Wolverine. Now, after the conclusion of the original X-Men Trilogy, it was decided to bring in a series of spin-offs which would focus on the origins of popular X-Men characters, and they went with probably the most popular X-Men character for the first installment, and that is Wolverine. Now, Wolverine's origin story had been touched upon in previous X-Men films, so it made sense to do a movie dedicated to exploring his origins and background and why Wolverine becomes who he is. However, it can be seen that there are a number of problems with this film which make it suffer. Today we'll be looking at a couple of them and trying to understand exactly why this film doesn't live up as well compared to previous X-Men films. Hardly any of the characters get appropriate levels of development in this film. Let's start off with the main character, Wolverine, who should be getting loads of development in his own standoff movie. However, he doesn't get hardly any. Now, the main problem is there's so many aspects of his character which they're trying to highlight in this film, and none of them get appropriate levels of time to really breathe and develop. 1 minute it's all about him fighting in wars, the next minute it's about whether he's more animal than human or vice versa, and then there's a love storyline thrown in there for good measure, and to be honest, none of it gets developed well. The love storyline feels incredibly forced. We see Wolverine and his love interest together for 10 minutes in this film. So you don't really have enough time to feel anything for this relationship. You don't understand what makes this relationship so unique. So the love storyline really needed more work on. In terms of the other characters in this film, as I've already stated, the love interest is very underdeveloped. I don't even really remember her name. That's how much she stands out in my mind. And we could have seen a lot more of her, and that would have made her character stand out more. As for the villains of the film, Sabretooth is a lot better than the original Sabretooth who appeared in the first X-Men film. He's actually pretty scary and gives a decent performance. He is a bit two-dimensional. There's not really a lot of conflict there. He's just kind of this hired goon who tries to kill people. So yeah, they could have done more with that. Stryker is in this film as well. I feel like they could have done a lot more with Stryker, trying to highlight his hatred of mutants. They don't really. It just kind of goes over what was said in X2, so nothing new really added there. As for new characters introduced in this film, we get Gambit, and Deadpool. And they get hardly any development, and that goes with the majority of characters. They kind of introduce all these cool characters. The problem is none of them are developed and hardly any of them have any character. So I'm going to give character development a 4 out of 10 because it's really low. There's just not enough development going on with any of the characters. Now, the performances in this film are pretty decent. The problem is, because the script is so bad, a lot of them suffer. Now, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, I would say this is probably one of his weakest performances in the role, mainly because I think he weren't putting loads of effort in because he knew the script was pretty bad. So his performance suffers as a result. I'm not saying that it's bad, you know, he's still good as Wolverine. I just think there are better examples of his acting capabilities as Wolverine in other X-Men films compared to this one. Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth is probably the standout performance. I really like him in the role of Sabretooth. He brings a menace and threat to the character, which was not present in the original X-Men film. So he really stands out, in my opinion. And a couple of the other characters, Danny Huston as a younger version of William Stryker is pretty alright. I can see him as a younger William Stryker. He just doesn't get enough screen time and enough stuff to do to really make him stand out. A couple of the other performances are nothing really to shout out about. will.i.am is in this film, and yeah, he's not a fantastic actor, so his performance was pretty distracting. He was just there for name recognition, let's be honest. He was not there based on his acting talents. And Reynolds makes his debut as Deadpool in this film. And yeah, He's pretty good for the first 10 minutes, and then they sew up his mouth and get a stunt double to play him, and yeah, he's useless. So Ryan Reynolds really didn't get a good opportunity to show what he could do with that character. Fortunately, we got Deadpool and Deadpool 2 to highlight just how great an actor in that role he is. So I'm going to give the performances a 6 out of 10 because apart from will.i.am, they're all pretty alright. The only problem is the script is so bad that none of them stand out. The effects in this film are the worst out of any X-Men film I have seen so far. They're laughably bad in some scenes. The scene in which he's standing in the bathroom and his claws come out, someone really should have said, look, this looks fake. Look, just looks absolutely fake. It looks terrible. Another scene in which Wolverine is smashing a ladder, that looks fake. And I really don't understand. This film was released 9 years after the first X-Men film, and its effects really don't hold up. They're that bad. I don't know if there was a problem with money or something. However, the effects really rubbish in this film. And in terms of the more practical effects, a lot of the action scenes are shot very strangely. They kind of speed up certain scenes and then slow down loads of scenes, and it really doesn't make sense. It just makes all the fighting scenes kind of confusing to watch, and you're kind of just sitting there like, what the hell are they doing with these action scenes? So I'm going to give the effects a 3 out of 10 because the CGI is shockingly bad and the fight scenes are just boring. The story and writing, oh my god. This story is insane. Now, because it's just so complex when it doesn't need to be. And a Wolverine origin film should be quite simple. Just learning how he gets the adamantium given to him and then how he loses his memory. The problem is this film decides to add loads of other elements which are not needed. So it starts off Wolverine and Sabretooth, who are brothers, are fighting all these wars. Then they join a team of secret mutants headed by Stryker. Then Wolverine leaves because the group are being too violent. He gets a girlfriend. The girlfriend is killed by Sabretooth. Then Wolverine gets the adamantium and goes on a murderous rampage where he intends to kill Sabretooth. However, then it turns out that Stryker is working with Sabretooth, and Sabretooth is getting all these mutants to Stryker, who Stryker is then using to create the ultimate weapon which will kill all mutants. And then Wolverine discovers that his girlfriend was actually in cahoots with Stryker. Then his girlfriend dies, and then Wolverine and Sabretooth fight Deadpool, who has his mouth sewn up. Honestly, this story is just so complicated, it doesn't need to be. And the problem is, it goes through a very tick box exercise when it comes to prequels. In instance as, we know how he is in the first X-Men film, so we need to figure out in this film how he gets from where he starts off in this film to where he starts off in that film. And it's very tick box like. For example, Wolverine has to get the adamantium surgically given to his skeleton. Tick box, that's done. Wolverine needs to figure out where he gets the name Wolverine from. Tick, that's done. And Wolverine needs to find out exactly why he lost his memory. Tick, that's done. The film has 3 things which we all wanted to know, and it does tell us in very boring ways. Honestly, this film's script is very complex. It didn't need to be. It needed to be simpler than this. And it's just very boring. I'm not interested in any of these characters. None of them stand out. And the story's just done very badly. A lot of the action scenes they put in this film are very stereotypical. I mean, there's one scene when Wolverine walks away after throwing a cigarette on petrol and there's a massive explosion behind him. We've seen that done 100 times. So a lot of the action scenes are very stereotypical and the storyline is just overcomplicated. It didn't need to be. So I'm going to give the story and writing a 3 out of 10 because honestly, it told Wolverine's origin story in the most boring way possible. So for this film's special recognition, there are a couple of things I'm going to talk about because I don't really have a specific one. Now, there are some things I enjoy about this film. The opening montage in which Wolverine and Sabretooth are fighting in all these wars. You've got them fighting in the Civil War, the World War II, Vietnam. That's actually interesting. And I do think that the film would have been improved if they'd focused on them fighting in all those wars. It might have been a more interesting and compelling story to see. And then in a sequel, you showed how he gets the adamantium given to him and how he loses his memory. So maybe you could have had 2 films for the price of 1 there. How they deal with Deadpool in this film is shocking. Now, Ryan Reynolds has been very critical about how this film handles Deadpool, and he's right in that criticism because the writers obviously don't understand who Deadpool is. It starts off pretty well. The problem is when he gets his mouth sewn up, and you know, his mouth is one of the main things. Deadpool exists because he's a very funny character, and Ryan Reynolds is great as Deadpool, so I don't understand why this decision was made. And you just have him fighting Wolverine and Sabretooth, and it's a pretty boring and forgettable fight. Thankfully, as I've previously said, we do get new Deadpool films now with Ryan Reynolds in the role, and he's a lot better in them films. So this film, you know, Reynolds is right. This film really did fail the Deadpool character. And honestly, X-Men Origins Wolverine was supposed to be, you know, the first installment of a load of films which were going to be origin films. The next one was apparently going to be X-Men Origins Magneto. Now that did change into X-Men First Class, so maybe this film's failure did lead to future successes. The problem is that a lot of elements of this film really do suffer, so I'm going to give the special recognition a 3 out of 10, mainly because this film had one of the best X-Men characters in terms of Deadpool and butchered him beyond repair. So in conclusion, X-Men Origins Wolverine showcases special effects which look like they come from the 1980s rather than the late 2000s. It also has an incredibly poor script, which means that character development and performances are very limited as a result. And that is why X-Men Origins Wolverine gets a very well-deserved 19 out of 50, which gives it a grade 5 ranking. Honestly, this is the worst X-Men film in my opinion. It's just very poorly done, no thought was put into it, and I'm glad we didn't get any more X-Men Origins films if they were going to be of this standard. So thanks for watching guys, I really do hope you enjoyed my review of X-Men Origins Wolverine. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe in order to receive great and maybe even improved quality content in the future. Now, the next X-Men film I will be reviewing is X-Men First Class, probably one which I have a bit of a soft spot for. So I hope you look forward to that, and I will see you in another one. See ya!